Hello, dear friends. Please prepare a cup of tea and a comfortable seat to enjoy the story we have prepared for you today. The evening rush at Bellevue, a luxurious restaurant in San Francisco, was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in a soft, golden light, highlighting the polished mahogany tables, each adorned with crisp white linens and elegant silverware. Waitstaff moved with practiced efficiency, balancing trays of artfully prepared dishes, their footsteps barely audible against the marble floor. At the center of the room sat a group of 3 women, their laughter rising above the gentle murmur of conversations. Leading the group was Olivia Chambers, a woman whose aura commanded attention. Olivia wasn't just affluent, she embodied wealth. Her diamond bracelet glimmered as brightly as her designer watch, peeking from beneath the sleeve of her tailored jacket. With a meticulously manicured hand, she sipped her wine, her sharp gaze surveying the room as though determining if it met her lofty standards. To Olivia, life was a hierarchy, and tonight she sat comfortably at the top. Across the room, a young waitress named Clara moved through the maze of tables, her uniform blending into the subdued atmosphere. Her name tag, barely noticeable, reflected her quiet demeanor. Clara had been working long hours, determined to save for college, though the strain was visible in her cautious movements. Tonight, her fatigue betrayed her when she stumbled slightly while delivering a tray of water glasses. Olivia noticed immediately, her lips curving into a condescending smile. People like Clara were invisible to Olivia until they aired. The mood shifted sharply when Clara arrived at Olivia's table, carefully placing their entrees before them. "Here you are, ladies," Clara said softly. "I hope you enjoy your meals." Her voice quavered slightly, but her politeness remained intact. Olivia raised an arched brow, scrutinizing the steak on her plate. "Excuse me," Olivia said, her tone razor-sharp. "Is this what you call medium rare? It looks overcooked to me. And why did it take so long? We've been waiting for ages." Clara blinked, momentarily taken aback. "I'm very sorry, ma'am. Let me fix this right away," she stammered. "Oh, spare me the apology," Olivia interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. Her companions exchanged amused glances, clearly enjoying the scene. "It's not rocket science to get an order right. Or is it?" Clara's cheeks flushed, her embarrassment evident as the air around them grew tense. At the far corner of the room, a man in a simple navy suit sat quietly, observing. His expression was unreadable, but his unwavering gaze suggested he missed nothing. Clara steadied her trembling hands and carefully lifted Olivia's plate, nodding politely. "I'll have this corrected right away," she murmured, heading toward the kitchen. But Olivia wasn't done. "Unbelievable," she said loudly, ensuring those nearby could hear. "They'll hire anyone these days, won't they? How hard is it to carry a plate of food without looking like you're about to drop it?" Her companions laughed in unison, Olivia leaning back in her chair, clearly reveling in the attention. Honestly, does she think a clumsy smile and a nervous apology will earn her a tip? Near the kitchen door, Clara paused, her grip on the plate tightening. Her face burned with humiliation as tears threatened to spill, but she forced them back. She had dealt with difficult customers before, but Olivia's calculated cruelty stung deeper than she anticipated. Meanwhile, at his corner table, the man in the navy suit continued to watch. His face remained impassive, but his fingers tapped lightly against his glass, a subtle rhythm that hinted at his intent. The story was far from over, and what happened next would alter everything. The man's movements were deliberate, his eyes fixed on Olivia's table as if carefully considering every detail of what he had just witnessed. Meanwhile, back at Olivia's table, the complaints continued. "And did you see how she walked?" Olivia scoffed, rolling her eyes. She looked like she was barely holding it together. "If she can't handle working here, She should find a job more suitable for her, like flipping burgers. Nearby diners were visibly uncomfortable. Some whispered quietly to their companions, while others cast disapproving glances toward Olivia's table. A couple seated close by exchanged a knowing look and shook their heads in silent agreement. But Olivia either didn't notice or simply didn't care. Moments later, Clara returned with a fresh plate of food, holding herself together with remarkable composure. "Here you are, ma'am," she said softly, placing the dish in front of Olivia. "I had the chef remake it for you. I hope this meets your expectations." Olivia barely glanced at the plate before shrugging. "I suppose it'll do," she said dismissively. "But next time, try to get it right the first time. And, for heaven's sake, learn how to carry yourself. You represent this establishment, and frankly, you're doing a terrible job of it." Clara forced a polite smile, her voice barely audible. "Of course, ma'am. I'll do my best." As Clara walked away, Olivia turned back to her friends, grinning. It's amazing how some people can be so incompetent and still think they deserve respect. At that moment, the man in the navy suit stood up. His movements were calm, almost measured, as he made his way toward the restaurant's manager, who was standing near the bar. Leaning in close, the man spoke in a low voice. The manager's expression shifted slightly, his curiosity giving way to something more serious. Unaware of the unfolding events, Olivia continued her conversation, animatedly recounting tales of her recent vacation. "Oh, the meals were stunning," she said, swirling her wine glass. "You wouldn't believe how exquisite the private villas were. And the staff? Flawless. Unlike what we've seen here tonight." Her words were punctuated with a smug smirk, eliciting giggles from her friends. Across the room, Clara quietly restocked trays of glasses, her hands still trembling as she tried to focus on her work. Tonight, however, compartmentalizing her emotions felt nearly impossible. It wasn't until Olivia and her friends requested the check that the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. The manager, a composed man with salt and pepper hair, approached their table, accompanied by Clara. In his hands was a tray carrying a bottle of champagne and an envelope. Olivia's eyebrow arched in confusion, though a trace of smugness lingered on her face. "Ladies," the manager began, his voice steady and professional, compliments of the house. Olivia's friends gasped in delight, one of them clapping her hands together. "Oh, how lovely." Olivia leaned back in her chair, clearly pleased. "Well, it's about time someone recognized exceptional patrons," she said, casting a pointed glance at Clara. But the manager's next words silenced the table. "This gesture comes directly from the owner of Bellevue," he said, placing the envelope in front of Olivia. "He has been observing your experience tonight and wanted to personally address it." Olivia's confident smile faltered. "The owner," she repeated, her voice tinged with surprise. Before the manager could respond, the man in the navy suit approached the table. The room fell silent, all eyes on him as he stood there, his posture relaxed yet commanding. He offered a polite but firm smile. "Yes, the owner," he said, his tone calm yet resolute. "My name is Thomas Bell, and this is my restaurant." Olivia's jaw tightened, a flush rising in her cheeks. "Oh, Mr. Bell, I didn't realize," she stammered, clearly scrambling for words. Thomas gestured toward Clara, who stood quietly nearby, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Clara here happens to be my niece," he said evenly. "She's one of the most hard-working individuals I know, and I take immense pride in having her on my team." The color drained from Olivia's face as her friends exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier amusement replaced by awkward silence. Thomas didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I couldn't help but overhear how you spoke to her tonight," he continued. "And while mistakes can happen, there's a way to address them, with respect and kindness." Olivia opened her mouth, fumbling for a response, but Thomas leaned in slightly, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Money might buy you luxury," he said, his words cutting through the silence, "but it doesn't give you the right to belittle those who work to provide it." His statement wasn't just directed at Olivia. It reverberated through the entire room. Diners sat frozen, hanging on every word. Olivia, who just moments ago exuded superiority, now sat stiffly, her confidence visibly shaken. Her fingers fidgeted with the stem of her wine glass, her polished exterior crumbling under the weight of the moment. Thomas straightened, his gaze sweeping over Olivia's friends and then the rest of the restaurant. "Respect is the foundation of this establishment," he declared, his voice firm yet steady. "Not just respect for the food we serve, but for the people who make it possible, the chefs, the servers, the dishwashers. Every single one of them is integral to what you're enjoying here tonight." Olivia opened her mouth again as if to respond, but no words came. One of her friends shifted uncomfortably, breaking the tense silence. "I'm sure Olivia didn't mean any harm," she offered weakly, her voice barely audible. Thomas tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. "Perhaps not," he said, his tone measured. "But intent doesn't erase impact. Words carry weight, and when they're wielded carelessly, they can cause lasting harm." Turning to Clara, who still stood off to the side, her face a mix of embarrassment and gratitude, Thomas spoke gently. "Clara, you handled yourself with professionalism and grace tonight, even under unfair scrutiny. I want you to know how proud I am of you." Clara blinked back tears, nodding slightly. She didn't trust her voice enough to respond, but her gratitude was evident in her expression. Thomas then shifted his focus back to Olivia. "Now, as for you," he said, his tone still civil but firm, "I could ask you to leave and not return, but I believe there's a better lesson to be learned here." Olivia's eyes widened slightly as her friends exchanged uneasy glances. Thomas gestured toward the champagne bottle the manager had brought earlier. "This was intended as a gesture of goodwill," he began, his voice calm yet resolute. "But instead, I'll be donating its value, along with your entire tab, to a local organization that supports young women like Clara who are working hard to build a better future for themselves." Murmurs rippled through the restaurant. Some diners nodded in approval, while others exchanged surprised glances. Olivia finally found her voice, though it wavered. "Mr. Bell, I think this is a bit extreme. I didn't mean to." Thomas raised a hand, silencing her gently but firmly. "This isn't about punishment, Miss Chambers. It's about accountability. And I hope this moment gives you an opportunity to reflect on the kind of legacy you want to leave behind." His words were steady, but they carried an undeniable weight. Olivia looked down at her hands, avoiding his gaze. Her friends sat in awkward silence, unsure how to respond. Thomas stepped back, addressing the room once more. "Let tonight serve as a reminder to us all," he said. "Kindness costs nothing, but it can mean everything. You never know what someone is carrying, or who might be watching." The room erupted in soft applause. It wasn't raucous or dramatic, but it was heartfelt. Patrons nodded in agreement, some even smiling at Clara as if to silently show their support. Olivia, however, remained frozen in her seat. Her earlier confidence had dissolved, leaving her silent and visibly shaken. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially in public, and the experience had left its mark. Thomas turned to Clara. "Take a short break," he said gently. "You've earned it." Clara hesitated for a moment, then nodded and slipped away toward the back of the restaurant. As she disappeared through the kitchen doors, her posture seemed a little straighter, her steps a little lighter. The evening at Bellevue gradually returned to its usual rhythm, but a subtle shift lingered in the air. Patrons whispered to one another, not about the food or the decor, but about what they had just witnessed. The quiet man in the navy suit had reminded them of something profound. Decency and respect weren't just virtues. They were essential. Olivia remained at her table, uncharacteristically silent. Her friends avoided addressing the incident directly, but the discomfort was evident on their faces. Olivia stared at her untouched plate, the sting of humiliation far stronger than any dish she could have ordered. Near the kitchen, Clara leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths to steady herself. Her manager approached with a warm smile. "You handled yourself beautifully tonight," he said. "Not many could have stayed so composed." Clara nodded, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you. I didn't think anyone noticed." "They noticed," the manager assured her. "Especially Mr. Bell." Back in the dining area, Thomas Bell returned to his seat, casually sipping from his glass of water as if nothing extraordinary had happened. A few patrons passed by his table on their way out, offering quiet nods or murmured thanks. What had started as an ordinary evening had turned into a moment of reflection, one that would resonate far beyond the walls of Bellevue. One diner, an older gentleman, paused briefly near Thomas's table. "You don't see people stand up like that much anymore," he said. "That was something special." Thomas offered a faint smile. "It wasn't about standing up. It was about reminding everyone, myself included, that kindness is the least we can offer each other." As Olivia and her friends rose to leave, she avoided meeting anyone's gaze. Her cheeks remained flushed, her confident stride replaced by an uncertain shuffle. At the door, she paused, casting a glance back at the room she had once commanded with her presence. For the first time, she seemed smaller, quieter, less sure of herself. The staff and diners didn't look at her with pity or disdain. Instead, there was a shared understanding, a collective hope that perhaps she might walk away from this moment a little changed. Outside, the night air was crisp. Olivia stood on the sidewalk, her friends murmuring consoling platitudes that felt hollow. She waved them off, saying she needed a moment alone. Meanwhile, inside Bellevue, Clara returned to the floor, her posture straight and her expression serene. She moved between tables with a warm smile, her confidence no longer hidden. Patrons now saw her as more than just a waitress. She was a young woman with grace and resilience. The night ended quietly, but the impact lingered. Some patrons left larger tips than usual. Others exchanged kind words with staff they might have previously overlooked. And Olivia? She walked away humbled, her perspective subtly but profoundly shifted in ways she never anticipated. From his seat by the window, Thomas Bell watched as the last guests departed. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply sat there, satisfied that a small but important lesson had been shared. Because at the end of the day, it isn't about wealth, status, or power. It's about how you treat the people who cross your path, no matter their position or background. And maybe, just maybe, if we all remembered that, the world might feel a little kinder. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who might need a reminder about the power of kindness. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire reflection and change. Goodbye and see you in the next stories.